You're the content king, so.
It's hard. But how has everything been with you? Like, not just work or real estate, was like life.
Oh gosh. If I'm being honest, everything's been
Oh, hold on. Let me fix something. Because you froze. I want to pause your
because
upload.
I got married in June, so um
I'm so sorry. You were paused for a little bit because
oh,
I
okay.
think. Can you restart? I didn't hear any of
Oh,
it.
sorry, no problem.
Yeah.
Actually, let me try putting this on. Let me see if this will work. Well, maybe more lighting for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, okay. Um, so everything's been a blur almost because
Mhm.
I feel like this year just went by really fast. I got married in June, but
Mhm.
months before that, because it was a destination wedding,
Mhm.
um, everything was just crazy. And so I did take a little bit of break from work because I wanted to focus on making sure like it wasn't just our wedding, it was like a
Mhm.
family vacation, friend
Yeah.
vacation. And so I was like planning everything. And so I took a little bit of break and then I got home and then I needed a little bit of break, but I'm back now. So
There we go. I love that. Where was it at?
it was in Hawaii.
Oh, it's so
I
nice.
know. I that was that was really like our dream place to get married, and
Mhm.
yeah, God just provided. And surprisingly though, like Hawaii wedding is cheaper than California wedding.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, right? Because
Yeah.
California is very expensive. When I looked at the venue like prices, I was like, no, that's too much.
It's just
So
the flight though now because of the
it's just the
Hawaii.
flight, yeah, and the lodging. So, but other than that, everything's been honestly, everything's been up and down, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I think because I took a break, so it's hard to kind of maneuver and adapt through the new market.
Mhm.
And I almost have to figure out what I have to do now that everything has changed compared to 2020, 2021 to 2022,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, that's what.
Yeah, because last year was hard. Were you flipping it all last year?
Oh my gosh, Justin, last year was so crazy.
Yeah.
I remember I remember I probably cried like every day. I was telling Brian, I was like, I can't do this anymore because I actually flipped three homes simultaneously,
Mhm.
and that was my first time flipping. And
Mm.
as soon as we were done with all of the homes that we flipped, the market shifted just that quick. And we were, well, I mean, for me personally, like I was really freaking out because you know our homes were staying in the market for longer than if it were in 2021, so everything
Mhm.
just completely changed. And so we needed to adapt and pivot through a few things. And but we barely got through, like we closed as soon as like the biggest change and the biggest shift in the market. And so we were still
Oh.
able to um, have a successful flip.
Oh, that's good.
So thank God for it. But other than that, like we had to kind of like pause and figure out like what are we gonna do because it's completely different. Like I think the
Mhm.
rates were just increasing so fast. We started, I believe, like in the threes in the beginning of the year, and then the next thing you know, as soon as March, April, May, it was just in the fours and the fives, and then
Mhm.
everything else, it was just chaotic. And so we decided to pause on flipping, and then but I have another business partner, and we decided to look at out of like southern states
Mhm.
because the margins are better, and low risk, but same profit for some reason. And so that's when we decided, okay, maybe we should research more out of state, see what the needs that we can, provide value to the
Mhm.
community. And so that's just been what we've been doing so far.
But still flips? That's what you wanted?
Yes, yes. So we
Interesting.
So we found this home in Mississippi. Um, we met up with the seller and everything, and she was so sweet. And they needed this house needed to sell really fast.
Hmm.
She needed the money and everything, and so we were able to buy this home all in all for 55,000, and we were able to bring our team, our construction team from here all the way to Mississippi,
Whoa.
and we were able to kind of do the full reconstruction of the home for about, I would say, 65, including lodging and all of those expenses. And we got an appraisal back for 214,
Okay.
which is I was like so thankful for that, because if it won't sell, then we can burr it. And it's my first time burring a property, so we're trying to figure out how that works. But all in all, it's been a crazy few months, but I'm still thankful for the experience of flipping, because I really love the process, and I really love just the community. And so yeah, that's just what's been
Yeah.
happening to
Well,
me.
I'm happy that like even their bad ones weren't too rough because I had some going on before it all started to tank, and then I got out early, and I was like, okay, like I see the market going down, but I still had some ongoing ones. I had like three ongoing. I was
Mm,
like, I think I can finish it before everything gets really bad, and
right.
I didn't. And we like fixed those up, and we listed on market and same exact thing. I was like,
Yeah.
why are the comps going down and
I
down and down? And
so fast.
very it was terrifying. I was like, "Oh my gosh," and I raised private money on these last 3 that, it
Mhm.
flipped through the hard time, and I took some losses, and,
Mm,
like, some were significant losses, and I was like, "Oh, crap," and it was, like, scrapping and pulling away and finding. I was like, "Alright, everyone has to get paid," and everyone did,
mm,
thankfully, but
that's amazing.
man, like, that was a time. So, now I'm not flipping, I'm trying to wholesale, and I've actually brought back my cold call marketing, because I wanna wholesale a lot more. I don't wanna flip right now. It's just
Yeah,
I'm
especially
scarred.
it's longer, and it's just, yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Um,
What are you doing right now for, I guess, looking for stuff?
so right now I am focusing more towards creative financing.
Oh, cool.
I'm not sure if you know Warren Rubin. You know
Yeah.
Warren, yeah. Like, he's so amazing. He was teaching me, creative financing, and because I'm also a realtor in California, so I want to be able to provide value to my clients, to my buyers who
Mhm,
really make good amount, and they don't have much debt. Like, their DTI is really, really, um it's you would think that they could qualify for a lot because of just the situation that they're in.
mhm,
um but because of the rates, they just cuts it in half almost. And so right now I'm just learning how to do creative financing, sub twos, like some assignment of sales, all those things,
mhm,
so that I can help buyers have a like finding a way for them to actually have a home,
mhm.
because as of right now the rates are just insane. um, and then I'm also trying to learn how to wholesale too. That is my
Oh,
biggest
cool.
goal, and your videos have helped.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And, it's actually a lot easier than flipping, I promise you, it's way easier than flipping.
It's intimidating.
Yeah.
It is.
I the only thing that's probably scary at first is when you lock it up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like, am I gonna find someone?" That's usually the scary part.
Mm,
But if you locked it up at the point where you think would make sense for your flip, maybe even lower than probably even lower than that, then someone's probably gonna buy it. You're probably in a good position.
right.
You don't have to deal with contractors and all this stuff. Like it's a lot easier, I promise you.
I don't know why I feel like flipping is easier than wholesaling to me. I think it's because most of my homes that I flipped were from the MLS. So it was easier for me
Mm.
to, grab those properties. But direct to seller marketing, prop stream, dialer, all of those things, I have to really learn, and like being able to hire VAs and all these things, like the
Yeah.
logistics of it all. But I think that's just my limiting belief, though. I feel like that's just
Well, I
something you
mean,
have to overcome.
you're confident with what you've been doing, which is normal. So, I promise you won't be that bad. I mean, let's talk about it then if you'd like. If just like your marketing and stuff. If you are you planning to start that stuff, your off market search?
Yes. So
Okay.
my goal is, um, well, for the next few months of the last quarter of 2023, my goal is really more for my real estate business as a realtor. I'm
Oh,
getting a
cool.
broker's license. I am
Ooh.
trying to figure out a way on how I can help sellers and buyers, how I can provide more value to them than I've ever, had before,
Mm,
just because I'm learning so much more now. And so that's just been my goal, but I am restarting my whole investment business in January. And that's when I'm going to learn wholesaling. I guess for me, as of right now, I don't know where. Like I think if I'm being honest, I'm nervous because this is recorded. So I'm like thinking like people are like looking at me right now. So, but
wait, they are. I'm sorry.
what was that?
They, oh, we're on YouTube
Right now?
right now.
Oh, hi.
That's why I asked for the pictures for the thumbnail and stuff. But it's
I
okay. Not
thought
not
it was. I'm sorry. I thought it was meant for like when you edit it out, but
no, no, it's okay. Don't worry. Like not a lot of people show up. I don't think anyone's even on right now. Yeah,
I
0.
love your videos though. They're so informative. I don't think people realize how expensive that knowledge is. That's why I always
Thank
like.
you.
That's why I
Oh, no,
always.
what? I appreciate that so much. I know. I was like, "Oh, like I didn't know if you're doing that because you're actually learning from it or because you're like, 'Oh, I love Justin. He's a friend.'"
No, I'm learning from
Oh,
it.
that's
Yeah,
so
and
good.
I know a lot of people that I have on my social media can learn more
Mhm.
from you than from me because you're also my mentor. So so I always repost it. Um, but yeah, so I guess like right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to learn how to actually start wholesaling.
Yes,
Because
I
I
love it.
think I'm intimidated, and I think I speak for a lot of people too,
Mhm.
because I understood flipping houses because I already went through the process of buying and selling before.
Mhm.
But wholesaling, it's different. It seems complicated to me, because I have to direct to seller marketing to an actual seller, and
Yeah.
then getting the contract, and then selling, and then I also have these fears of like, oh, what if I get sued because I called him and he was on the do not call list or anything like that? And so
It
there's just a few
happens.
things that are going through my head.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be protected because there's ways to protect against all of those things, like for the do not call thing. Actually, no, it's funny because I'm cold calling right now myself because
Wow.
I was burnt so hard with this flips. I was like, I'm trying to do the least risky thing that I know how to do, that I've been
Mhm.
successful with, and I'm getting content out of it. So I was like, why not? So even today, I called someone and they're like, he was cussing at me. He's like, what the fuck? Like I got on the do not call list and I was like, I'll take you off. But I scrub my list too. So every month the list scrubs out do not call list and litigators. So people
Mm,
that are known to sue other people, like professionals,
mm,
suers, people that sue and
yeah.
do not call. But he probably just signed up for it, the do not call list, so it probably missed
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
But I was like, I'll take you off. And in my head, I was like, please don't sue me. um, but yeah, like I'm kind of curious. So for you, you said you're trying to grow your realtor business.
Hmm.
What were you planning to do, I guess, to get more clients, whether they're buyers, sellers?
Right now my focus are sellers. Um,
Nice.
I I'm trying to build just my sellers list,
Mhm.
and I want to focus more on people that bought their homes way back then, like in the 1980s. Sorry, my computer. Hold on a
You're good.
second. um, because there's this idea going on that sellers won't sell because they bought it at such a like really low rate, like in 2020,
Mhm.
2021. But a lot of people don't really realize that there's actually more people that bought way before then. Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of people that still has their homes since like 1980s. And so, and they have so much equity, and we can do reverse mortgages, or figure out a way for them to, because if a lot of those people probably have like their kids already grown up, they probably want to downsize. And so what I'm trying to do is to provide value to these sellers and say, hey, I am here to help you, because sometimes it's hard to let go of a home too, and
Hmm.
they don't know a lot of things about real estate. They only just think realtors are horrible and money hungry and all these things. And so that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be the person that they can call. And so I'm farming, and I'm trying to
Wait,
um
when you say farming, it's been a while since I've been realtor work. What is that?
so we have a software through our title company where we look at homes that were bought since 1960, I
Oh,
would
okay.
say, to like 2000, 2008, or even actually even 2000 and before 2020, I would
Hmm.
say, where they have so much equity, it wouldn't matter if their rates were high or low because they bought it for such.
Hmm.
I mean, these houses I've seen, they were bought for like $9,000 that are
Dang.
worth like $800,000 now.
Wow.
And I also even like niched it even like more
Hmm.
where I looked at homes that are 2,800 square feet where it's you know really big houses, and I'm pretty sure by now they probably would like to downsize.
Hmm.
And I've helped a couple of clients in that situation, so I am familiar. And so that's kind of like where like I am doing with my real estate business. For buyers, I'm learning more about creative financing because, like what I mentioned earlier, a lot of my clients really have good income, no debt, their DTI is great, and they should be able to qualify for average homes, but the rates are nearing 8 or nearing 7, and it just cuts it in half. And so, what I want to do is there's got to be a way to help them through either sub two or assignment of sale or any, creative financing, because we've done it with two of our clients already. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. So that's my real estate business. 'Cause
Okay.
I kind of took a break for like a couple of months.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I'm kind of curious, why buyers in the first place? Like, why? Because it's a lot of work to think sub too. Like, why not just all in on listings and the investments? Because you can have one marketing strategy for both, like
True.
cold calling, texting, and let's say you go direct to seller, cold call,
Mm-hmm.
and you talk to a seller and you're like, hey, you want to sell? And one of them will say yes. And if they say yeah, then it's, maybe asking the question like, what are you hoping for? And you get a gauge, and you can approach as the buyer first, or wholesaler, a buyer. You're approaching as the buyer first.
Hmm.
Um, and if you suspect just based on your conversation that they're not going to be going for that cash offer low, they're like, there's not really a need, there's no big distress, they just kind of want to sell it, not in a rush, like truly, then it can be, hey, look, it sounds like you wouldn't sell unless you got like market value or highest price possible. And they'll say, yeah. And you can say, actually, I don't buy properties for cash at market value. So I'm buying for a profit, but there might be something else I can help with. Like I might be able to help you list it, or I don't know if you're open, but we can talk something more creative where I can maybe pay closer to your price, but it won't be a cash offer. It's gonna be something, well, you help me finance it, but I'd pay higher. So like, that's the conversation, and so you could
Hmm.
do one marketing strategy, cold calling,
For
for
all.
all of your stuff, and then because
For sure.
buyers are time consuming, like, very time consuming.
Yeah.
I was a realtor, I hated buyers, because it just took so long.
Yes, and they would ghost you sometimes. And
Mhm.
I'm like, what happened to our lunches?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
bonded.
Yeah.
um, that is so amazing, actually. That's a great idea. I didn't think of that because you're pretty much like targeting everything in just
Exactly what you
one
want,
strategy.
yeah. Yeah, and you're just going through the list of what would make you most money first. Well, probably the wholesale, so
Yeah,
ask that question for then what's most money, maybe seller finance. If you're open, it's like,
mhm,
then what's last? Oh, realtor listing.
it's true.
I mean, that's what I'm doing now, and even my last like today, I talked to I didn't cold call that much today. I dialed like 1,000 or so in a couple hours. But
Awesome.
I got 2 leads out of it. One was actually just a retail lead, and, the guy, I was like, "Hey, like, would you sell?" He's like, "No, I'm actually fixing it up myself and probably selling in 6 months." And I was like, "Oh, like, cool. You do flipping or anything like that?" And then I got in the conversation of, "Hey, look, I do wanna buy your house, but it sounds like you already got a game plan. If do you have any realtors that you would need? Because I'm not a realtor myself, but I'm friends with a lot. Like I probably can connect you with one." He's like, "Actually, man, that'd be so great." And so I'm like, "Hey, cool. I'm just gonna check in with you every once in a while." I gave him my cell, and eventually he's gonna sell, and I'll get a referral fee because I'm an agent technically. I just don't
Yeah,
use
of
it.
course. Yeah.
So it's like little things like that that pays for your all your data, your marketing. Might get a referral fee of like 3,000, 4,000. Um, like those things, it just pays for it.
Yeah, that's really smart though. I actually didn't think of combining them because that's actually this is so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. No, of course. I'd rather not you having to do 2 things at once when you can do 1 thing and get both done.
That's what happened to me. So remember when we spoke um I think this was last Christmas.
Mhm.
And
Wow, it's a long time ago.
it was a long time ago. Time flew by so fast. Um I was really burnt out because I was working so much as a realtor.
Mhm.
I think there was a month where I had like I would say like 8 or 9 escrows, which is still a great like I'm still very thankful that I was even given that opportunity. Um, but but I was also trying to flip houses at the same time, and but it was just I think I really got burnt out.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in real estate and even in social media they don't like talking about it, but I like to talk about it because I'm pretty sure everyone went through it, especially with a huge market shift. I don't know. I just got like this feeling of like I don't want to do it anymore. Like I was
Mhm.
almost done, and I think what you told me was you have to find the joys in what you do and outside of what you do,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that really helped me out so much. So
Oh.
I went to Disneyland, and I had fun, and you know what? It gave me a new perspective on like what do I need to focus on because I I really need to figure out where I'm headed because I am my personality and my strengths like I can't really focus with when if there's a lot of things that I have to
Mhm.
do. But if
Mhm.
you give me one thing that I have to do, I'm giving you 200% on that. And
Mhm.
so I had to stop a lot of my real estate work when I was doing when I was like flipping like three,
Mhm.
four houses because I wanted to just learn everything, make all the mistakes that I needed to make and do better. But I was doing them both like later on and that's when I got burnt out. But yeah, so I that's really helpful, like what you mentioned, because I didn't think of just combining both of them. And
Yeah. Well, I'm happy even that first piece of advice a long time ago helped you because
oh,
yeah, the burnout's so real. And you know what's funny? When you said the advice I gave you, like finding the joy in like the little things and other things maybe, sometimes that changes too. Like I
mm,
never thought I'd find joy in cold calling and the grind, but I
mhm,
do. Like
mm,
now that I'm like back to it, cold calling again, I'm like, this is kind of fun. And like I look forward to it because things change. And it's fun because I know I have to do it right now.
yeah, mm,
Losing so much money the past year, it was hard. Like I'm not gonna
mm,
sugarcoat it. And a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but that sucked. And I felt like a lot of me was lost, like my identity, because I
mm,
lost all this money and a lot of my identity was tied into being good at flipping and
mm.
smart. And when I lost money, I was like, I suck. Like what is and I was a
Oh,
I'm coaching.
yeah,
And so I felt like embarrassed almost. And I
mm,
was like, you know what? I have to tell students how it feels like because it really like if we want to get where we want to go, we have to go through the hard stuff because we can't be that kind of
mm,
person without the hard stuff.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm happy that advice helped you in general.
It really did, and what you just said right now actually gave me a lot of healing, just
Oh,
because
yeah.
I thought I was the only one who was feeling because I felt like I failed on a lot of things actually last year.
Mhm.
Um, we did do well on one of our flips, but the other one we just lost a few, which is still okay. I'm thankful for the opportunity, but because I was so burnt out, I didn't even want to work, and I feel like I failed that year. Like
Yeah.
2022 was like, I feel like I failed, and I feel like I failed 2023 year also, and I felt like I was like, oh, like I don't want to put my identity on how good I am or anything
Yeah.
like that, and so that was so healing that I wasn't the only one that was going through that. Thank you for sharing that, because
It's a
um
lot of people, I promise you. I talked to a lot of people, and even I was embarrassed at first bringing it up to people. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like, "Good." And they're like, "How are you doing?" I was like, "Not that great, to be honest." And then they open up like, "Yeah, the flip's been rough." Like everyone's lost money. Like I've lost over 100,000 for sure.
mhm,
Like these past flips. Um, but once you talk to more people who are actually open about it, you're like, "Oh, like, okay, like, it's okay, like, I'm not
I'm
bad,"
not
and
alone.
the yeah, I mean, the thing that helped me too is to escape because I was in a rut for a while, like, I stopped being myself, I stopped exercising and I
Mm,
got a lot bigger, like, this is I'm not comfortable actually with how, like, I feel, and so I've been back to everything as far as my workout routine. I'm feeling better now, but it's it was so weird that little space I was in, and I think it
mhm,
was because that was the first time I've ever felt that. I've never felt lost like that, but another thing is it gave me a different kind of motivation. Before, everything of me was, like, optimistic. Everything was I was doing everything because of my why and, like, the goal, the end goal,
mhm,
which you're striving towards, but now it's not just that, it's I have pain now. I have something that I
mhm.
remember,
Yeah.
and so every time I sit down, I'm like, "I have to make these calls, I have to do this." It's literally because I'm thinking, "I remember that pain, I never ever wanna feel that again because
Yep.
it sucks so much."
Yeah.
And, it's a different motivator. That's why I think people have to go through it.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. I'm like almost like I'm out of words because I I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I love going to wealth cons. Like it's my favorite thing. I love seeing everybody from Future Flipper, and love seeing Ryan and Brian and everyone. But I just feel like I failed on a lot of things where I don't have much to offer to go. And I know that's kind of like, oh, that's I shouldn't think that way, but I've just been feeling kind of like maybe I don't want to, maybe I shouldn't go because like
Well, it's normal. I didn't go to the last couple because I felt that down too. I
yeah.
felt that, and, I don't know, it's escaping it, it was like I had to do the little things to myself again to prove that I was who I am. Like,
Mm,
just keeping promises to myself. I told myself I'm gonna walk in the morning, do it at the exact same time I told myself I was. And, like, over time, like, when you do all the things that you promise yourself, you just start to feel a little bit better.
yeah.
And then it rolls.
Yeah.
But I felt the same way, like, it's normal.
Okay.
I was embar I told you, like, I was embarrassed, and
Me too.
I wanted to keep it in, but actually, on a lot of my content, I've been really open about that stuff.
I am so thankful that like
Yeah.
it's not just you. It was a few people that I've seen online too were genuine about what they went through, and I needed those. Like I
Oh,
needed
good.
that message at that moment because I was going through, just dark times.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it was pretty rough, and but I'm so happy like I'm not the only one.
Yeah, and, it's funny, when I was going through that, I was thinking about making a video just for myself of, like, "Remember this pain." I never made it, and I wish I did. But, I ever since I regretted that, I was like, I should make videos now, like, telling people
Mhm.
what's going on, because I was like, someone's bound to it's bound to help someone get out of
Yes.
something.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's yeah, like, you're completely normal. I've even all the big hitters, they all took losses, and, some hurt a lot. It's crazy, like, you think your situation's bad, and then you hear the next person, you're like, "Oh, like, I should be kinda grateful that I didn't get hit as hard."
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I too though, what I've been learning because of just everything that I've failed, and just me feeling like a failure. And
Mhm.
I had this imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, like I got an award, like I should be something right now, but I'm still so far from my goal. Um, I was praying about it, and I really was like asking God, like, I need, I can't go through this, like I can't go through like putting my identity on my success, because I'm gonna fail a lot, and I'm not perfect and I'm still learning a lot. And so, but I felt like God was just telling me, like whatever you're going through right now, I'm building you for something more.
Mhm.
And I need you to love the process, because I I feel like my goal is always, this is how much I need to make this year. This is how much I need to make this year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's always been my goal for the past 3 years, 4 years. But I think God just changed my mindset, and now my goal is like, no, this is who I want to be. This is the character that I want. Okay, Brian's gonna laugh, but Brian Davil's gonna laugh because he knows this. I'm always late. And I was late here too.
You
I was
were.
5 minutes late. And I'm like, this is the Justin Young show. Like, I don't know why I'm late. I'm always late. And so one of my goals was, I don't want to be late anymore.
Mhm.
And I want to keep my word when I say I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, which I owe you a video. I still owe you a video.
Oh, that was a long time ago,
I
yeah.
know, Justin. I'm
That's alright. You know, actually, you don't even have to make it because I stopped I stopped asking people as much for, like, call to actions on coaching because it actually hurt my audience. It, like, hurt the goodwill. I asked too much for, like, join coaching, whatever. Because for years I just did my content, did it for free, and never ask anything, and like it built the audience. And then
Mhm.
as soon as I started making a little money, I was like, maybe I can just make a call to action on everything. And I did, and I saw like views went down, engagement down. I was like, oh.
Mm,
And so now I'm like, I'm just putting it back out, free stuff. Like I'm never asking until people start asking me, and
like
like
where?
so it's genuine, and it's
Mhm.
not. I'm not like everyone else. Like that. That's what I realized. It was, and I learned that from. It was like a podcast Alex from Ozzy did. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, that was the mistake I made. He was telling exactly what happened.
Mm.
Um, the thing I wanted to share with you too. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much, but
Mhm.
you mentioned your identity. That was huge for me, like very huge. And the thing that got me, because like I told you, when I lost all that stuff, I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. And
Mm.
I was like, should I get a job? Should I do the things like, do I believe in myself anymore? Am I that confident anymore? It
Mm.
was like that. And things that helped me get out of it was one, getting back to my health, my fitness, but that was hard too. That was really hard to like muster up the strength. But it was also realizing who I actually am. It was just someone that's always nice to people and someone that works really hard.
Mm.
That's how I see myself, so that nothing can take it away. Um, and the thing that helped me was like even when I lost like everything, like all the things that you've been working up for years, 5 years doing this, and I was like to see it all like go away like that. I was like, whoa. But then I remember the thing that helped me. I ran into this really nice waiter when I went out with Janelle, and
Mm.
it was like a pickup order. I picked up. He was really nice, and I just tipped him really well. I was like, "Dude, thank you so much." And like he was ecstatic. We had a good conversation, and I was like, "Yeah, like that felt really good. It felt like amazing. It felt like it was the first time I felt like myself again."
Mm.
And that's when I realized, like, okay, like I'm not how much money I make. I'm not how many deals I do. Like I'm the person that just like works hard and is good to people. And that's what kind of brought me back, and like it snapped me out of the thing. And I know a lot of people are still in this weird zone because I still talk to people to this day and checking with them, and they'll tell me like, "Hey, I'm still in this little rut." I'm like, "I get it. Like it's hard. It's hard to escape. There's not one thing you
Mm.
can do. It's like you just got to figure it out." So maybe it's something like an identity search for you, or like finding who
Yeah,
you are truly, something that you can control.
right. And so this year, I had this realization of, my drive was always my anxiety. I had severe high functioning anxiety, where like I don't want to fail myself and I don't want to fail who I was last year.
Mhm.
I need to show her up. I was always comparing myself to my past year self.
Mhm.
Like, I need to show her up, you know.
Oh,
Um,
that's
this year I did
interesting.
not show her up. This year I was like, I don't know what happened with me this year, you know? And God was just reminding me that this year maybe it's not about the amount that you will make. This year needs to be your character, you know.
Mhm.
This year could be healing a lot of traumas that you went through, and this
Mhm.
year would be more intentional about your work, being learning more about how to be better at this, providing people value rather than how can I make this money.
Yeah.
And that gave me so much freedom because all of a sudden I just surrendered it. And you know what? I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be the best realtor intentionally um, this year, even if I did not reach the mark that I want financially. But if I was super intentional with all of my clients and my future clients because I have created a plan for them, or I've created a better way for people, I'm okay with that because
Mhm.
I have taught myself, or I have learned how to be better at what I do, to strive for excellence rather than striving for I need to show her up from last year,
Mhm.
and even with real estate investing too, like this year for me it's understanding that sometimes flips just don't work out and you have to do exit strategy and you need to learn how to wholesale and all these things, and overcoming this limiting belief in my head where wholesaling is so intimidating. And maybe that's just what I need to learn this year,
Mhm.
and that gave me a lot of freedom where I've actually felt more in love with real estate, than more like I don't want real estate anymore.
Yeah.
And
No,
so,
I love that.
yeah, that's what you said too, right? Like you like I'm starting to love the process of cold calling and everything. And
Yeah. And
someone, oh, go ahead, good.
that's the thing about it is too is we once you feel like you snap out, for me at least, once I felt like I snapped out of it, then it's like, okay, now the actions have to reflect what I really believe, what I tell myself. And so like, for example, like right now we're shooting to cold call this week. I have a lot of appointments this week with like coaches, coaching calls and stuff. But the goal is to cold call for 48 hours. Like for out of my work week. I'm working like 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Like we're grinding. And it's crazy because I was like, when I told you there's a new motivation, it's the motivation that like I truly can't fail. Like I refuse now, and I never had that before.
Mm,
And then the week after, we're shooting a call for 69 hours, and I just said no appointments except like one. So like I'm trying to limit myself to one other appointment outside of my coaching calls and stuff like that,
mhm,
and outside of seller calls. But
mhm,
if there's no appointments with sellers, it's like, no, we're spending every single waking moment cold calling or talking to a girlfriend or working out. And my workouts are even cut short a lot now. It's like you find
mm.
ways, I found ways to like squeeze other exercise in, like a
You
walking
mentioned
treadmill. Like,
the walks. You
yeah,
actually use more on the walks. I actually saw that.
yeah, no, exactly. It's like stuff like that. So now I'm only realistically spending about 30 minutes on my resistance training, which is much more effective than I was spending 2.5 hours every single morning. So like I'm finding every single way that I can do the one thing that I know needs to get done, which is the calls.
Mm,
Like it has to get done because it doesn't matter what I tell myself, how confident I am with myself. It's like as long as I'm not doing the stuff, if I'm not doing it, then I'm not doing what I actually said I was doing. So,
wow.
like, it's like an insecurity almost, but I'll let it fuel me, like, it's fine. Like, I'll just let it keep me going.
Yeah.
Um, and I think people you gotta feel something. So,
Mm,
like, that's what I'm up to right now. It's I'll be doing all the calls and all the follow-ups, all the seller appointments myself, kinda
wow.
like back to the drawing board, and that's how I started, and that's how I
The
got deals.
basics. Yeah.
Yeah, and, I'm excited because I started doing I guess wealthy investor slash home run offer. They started the called PPP program. I don't know if you've
Like
heard about
the partner,
the partner thing.
we find them a deal, they'll
Yeah.
sell one, right?
So
I love.
if they send a lead, um, and we close them, then we can split partnerships. Now they're gonna have me do the closings, like live on the Zoom calls with the rookies. So like a
Mhm.
couple times a week, I'll be trying to close their. Well, I will be closing their leads. Um,
That's awesome.
and so yeah, it's just extra practice. Like I have to focus hard, and I think you'll see it too with yourself. Of like now that I said I'm gonna do it, I owe it to myself
Mhm.
to really go all in. And
Yeah,
it's like a season of saying no. It's okay to have seasons of overworking or whatever. It's just a
yeah,
season. It's
yeah,
what's needed.
yeah. My goal this year, I told myself, you won't be fueled by anxiety
Mm-hmm.
of lacking, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to, I'm, I want to be fueled by worship and also excellence. Like you want to strive for excellence. You want to do well with what you've been given, and you want to be good steward of that. And so that's kind of like where I am. And I love what you said, like you want to work, and now I feel like I am working but not
Mm-hmm.
overworking. I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the work
Mm-hmm.
because it's not based out of fear or anything like that. It's just based
Mm.
of like, I really want to work, you know.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
different.
want, it is different, and I'm thankful that I went through everything that I went through the past few years, you know, because it has shaped me to become this person now where I'm okay to lack, you know, and but I'm also okay to not start from scratch, but kind of like a comeback in a way. Jeremy
Yeah.
always says that. He's like, this comeback's personal. And I was like, I love that, you know, and
No,
so
I call it it's comeback season for
it's a
everyone.
comeback season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like now that I'm back to it, I'm learning so much more and I'm realizing things like reasons why I failed or the cold calling in the past with my VAs and lead manager didn't wasn't as good as I'd hoped. It's because all the things I've learned throughout. And like I'm actually doing the volume that I'm able to do the volume that I had two VAs do full time. And then it made me realize I was like, wow, like I really wasn't on top of them enough to push
Mhm.
them to call what they really could. Cause I was like, if I could call what two VAs could, like, it just I don't know, it's
Yeah.
you learn you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from now a bunch of new skills.
Yep. Mhm. I agree. I agree. Yeah, someone told me that like you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from where
Yeah.
you left off, but with more
Yeah.
power and more fuel, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, so I'm curious, what kind of questions, though, do you have on,
Wholesaling?
the out well, I guess that, but, like, also just the marketing, the cold calling, because it sounds like that's what you were wanting to start.
Yes. Um, gosh, I should have prepared questions. See,
That's
that
alright.
is one of the things that I am working on this year is I need to be more prepared.
I can guide you on on just general, because like, if you're
Mhm.
wanting to start would you like me to just guide you on, like, the general steps where to
Please,
go?
yeah. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
too are in the same position as like same situation and position as I am right now. They don't know how to start wholesaling.
Yeah.
Especially, well, they can with MLS. I think a lot of realtors are able to, but direct to seller is completely different. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, let's walk through it. So, I mean, first thing before even thinking about making calls, pulling lists, whatever, it's like it's getting a CRM set up. Do you have one that you use for your wholesaling or investing?
Um, Not a soft for my real estate, but I don't use it
Okay,
for
but not one.
investment. Yeah. CRM
You'd probably separate it then, right?
I do separate them. Yeah.
Okay, so have you heard of Podio? Have you used Podio?
I've heard about Podio.
It's super simple and it's free. It's free until you start adding employees to it, like in your
Okay.
workspace. I'd probably recommend that first. And instead of me telling you to like set up yourself, I actually made a blank workspace and that I can share with people so they can clone it. So I've shared it with like 200 people or so far.
And this is your
Um,
CRM.
yes, yes.
Awesome. I'm writing it down.
Um, Here, I can share it with you right now just before I forget. Now, if you do, when you create it, will you create it with the email that you was connected to this Gmail event or Google event?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna add you to it right now just before I forget. And then I'll text you how to clone it. Like I made a video a long time ago when I made the video of how to clone it to your own workspace. So that, and I'll show you like how it looks like just so you have an idea.
Okay.
I think I can share my screen. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share. Okay. I guess I'll share my entire screen. Okay. So here's what it looks like. Can you see this?
It's loading.
Oh,
Yes, I can
okay.
now.
So this is what Podio looks like. And when you clone it, you'll have these basic tabs that I created. I really adjusted the basic real estate pack, so it has everything you need to wholesale. Like in terms of the one that you'd be using mostly is this one, leads. And so basically, anytime that you find a lead from your cold calling, you just add one. It looks like some people added random ones, but if I click, like I can add a lead and you can input, seller name, address, who's in charge.
And the
You can
notes.
add comments, and at the bottom, you can set tasks to yourself or to someone else on your team to like, let's call them in
Oh, and you
a
can do the
month.
due date, like
Yeah, and due date, and
time.
you can assign it to a
Oh,
specific
that's
person.
so cool.
Yeah, so use Podio for sure. Like it's, and then oh yeah, I'll text you that thing.
Do you think you're able to integrate a lot of your CRM, like for sellers and buyers, as a realtor there too? You can have different types of files, or is it just mainly like for?
Oh, for realtors and buyers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So I made tabs for
Mm-hmm.
those. So let me share that again. Entire screen. Oh wait, oops, I messed up. Entire screen. Pick, click.
It's
Okay.
loading right now.
So if I go to the home page, let's say you're reaching out to realtors or if you're reaching out to people specifically to get your deals, like wholesalers and realtors, cold outreach, there's a networking tab. So you can
Oh.
add a person. And if I add, like, you can add someone as a realtor, an investor, a wholesaler. So you can keep track of them. And the same thing goes. You can assign tasks to yourself or to someone on your team to follow up with them or call them.
Mm.
Um, and then if you want to make offers on the MLS, there's a tab for MLS prospects. So same exact thing. It just separates like your marketing strategy. So you can add the address, the listing agent, list price, your ARV, and then same exact thing. Follow up.
That's so
Same
cool.
thing with if you have cash buyers. There's a cash buyer tab. You can add your cash buyers. So like it's perfectly made for wholesaling. That's the idea.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And
So
which one? That's so cool. That was Inception right
I know. I was like, oh,
there. um, for finding leads, do you use PropStream?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then for dialer, do you use batch dialer or something else?
Right now I use Ready Mode. It's actually been my favorite dialer by far. You're familiar with dialers, like you've used them before, right? Or no?
Ones.
Okay, okay.
Just one.
So Ready
Okay.
Mode is probably the least beginner friendly, but it's been my favorite because they have a bunch of training videos and they have pretty good tech support where you call them, they'll answer. But it's like it's confusing for because I've used multiple dialers and I started Ready Mode this year and I was like, where are the buttons? Like, where does everything go?
Uh,
The easiest, most beginner friendly is probably Mojo, but
yeah,
actually believe it,
I've heard of it.
it's like my least favorite now because I don't know. I've just seen the speed of the other ones dialing and like how it works. It
Right.
auto dials, but Mojo's like you'll understand what's going on because all the buttons are there. Call Tools is another one, batch dialer. So I've done Mojo, Call Tools, and Ready Mode,
Right.
and they're all very similarly priced, like 150 a month for triple line.
No, that's not bad.
Yeah. So yeah, you got dialers, you got the dialer, you have data. It sounds like you'd use PropStream or something like that.
Yes, I do use PropStream. Yeah.
Okay, so you got CRM, you got
Mhm.
data, you got the dialer, and if you're not sure what dialer to use, you can just talk to the sales reps and talk to all of them and see which one fits best.
Right.
CRM data, Mojo, skip tracing. So you need somewhere to skip and find the phone numbers from that data. PropStream has its own internal skip tracing. It's at like 12 or 13 cents per skip.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, all the skip tracing services from like 3 cents to 13, they're all like the same. They're even though one's higher, they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, you get
I've
the
tested.
same list
It's like
almost.
the same kind of list. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there are some differences, but I wouldn't worry about it. Like, so it's up to you whether you want to save or use one you're comfortable with.
Cool. Cool.
And yeah, once you have like those are the four main things, and once you do, it's just a matter of calling. Now with a dialer, you definitely want to get multiple numbers, like 30 numbers, 30 phone numbers that you're going to be calling from. Now, reason is if you're only calling from one number, like your cell phone or a Google Voice number, it gets marked really fast as
Mm-hmm.
spam from Verizon, AT&T, all those services, like very
Mm-hmm.
fast because you're calling fast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of the dialers, I think Mojo does this too, they'll auto rotate their numbers. So every single next dial, it's a different number, a different number, so that there's like more rest time. That alone will save you a lot of money. Some dialers have it included where you can buy phone numbers from them and they partner with like a number website. Ready Mode does that. I don't know if Mojo does. I know people can buy numbers from CallRail and stuff like that if their dialer doesn't have it. But what I pay and I bought the numbers from Ready Mode, for 30 phone numbers, it costs me $30 to get and $30 a month to keep. So it's pretty cheap, but it's probably your best ROI, your return on investment.
Cool.
So yeah,
Thank you
get at
so
least
much for this. This is so important. Thank you.
yes. Yeah, no, because a lot of people, it's so easy to do the right things, but not do the right things, like mess up and you're screwed. So
Yeah.
I'd rather you do the right things at the beginning.
And you have a list. Sorry, not a list. A script that you.
Yes.
Mhm.
My favorite script so far is actually from Steve Trang. And you might, when you first read it, you'll actually like, you'll probably be like, really? Should I say this? Because it's different. But it's all based in actual psychology and actual sales. So, for example, and I'll share it with you, but
Mhm.
when you pick up the phone, let's say the seller, like, hello, I say, hey, Liz, like just like that. And they're like, I just want to wait for them to confirm if it's them.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Hey, like, who is this?" And the first thing I say, "It's Justin. Probably caught you at a bad time." So like, it doesn't sound weird. Almost, it's like I'm making an assumption that I caught them at a bad time, so that if it's a good time for them, actually, they'll correct me, and because people like to correct other people, so they'll say, "Actually, no, it's fine. Like, what's up? What's this about?" That's always what they say. Like every single time, like, "Well, yeah," or they'll say, "If it is a bad time." Actually, it is a bad time. And before I never asked, is it a good time? Is it a bad time? I just went right into, do you want to sell your house? But now I realize why we do it. It's because when you ask that question, if they do say, yeah, it's a good time, and they do want to sell their house, now you know that they have time to actually answer more questions
Yeah.
about, well, what do you want to sell for? Because before I'd say, do you want to
Smart.
sell? Yeah, I would ask, do you want to sell your house? They'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, what would you want? They're like, actually, I'm actually about to go. So like, can you call me another time? And it like it ruins the whole experience for them. So it's asking that question, and if it is a good time, then it's I'm not. I don't know if you can help me, but I'm trying to reach the owner of 123 Main Street, and I just leave it at that, and they'll tell me. They'll say a bunch of stuff actually, but if it is them, they'll say, "Yeah, that's actually me. Like, what's this about?" Or like some of them will already assume that you want to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
and from there, if it is them that owns the home, I'll say, you probably don't want to sell it. Or like you're probably not interested in selling. It's another assumption. So it's not saying, do you want to sell? Because it's so easy to say no, even if they might want to sell. You're like calling them out on purpose. It could be a lie on purpose. It's like
Because
because
people
if
always want to argue.
yes, because okay, maybe I don't know if I could trick you actually, but let's say if I said, I promise you, I can guarantee you, I can get you to say seven, like the number seven. And
Okay.
you'd say, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
what's one plus one?
2,
What's two plus two?
4,
What's three plus three?
6,
What's five plus four?
9.
See, I got you to say nine.
But you said oh,
Correct.
got
People like
it.
to correct. See, right there, it's what's natural tendency. I didn't think that would work, but it did. So if that's gonna be a TikTok, but
It is.
if
Oh my god. I was
if
ready for it too. I was like, I'm not saying, you know.
yes. So if I say, "I probably caught you at a bad time," they're like, well, no, it's not. Like, that's usually the tone.
Like
I was
you
like, "No."
wanna like defend yourself, you know?
Yes,
Save
because
the
yeah. So, that's how the conversation go, and, like, that's how the whole script is. It's just psychology. So,
That is so
I'll
cool.
share that with you, and another thing I'll share with you that I'm
It's
not gonna share live
funny.
on YouTube, it's
It's
gonna be so I told you I got the disruptor sales training from Steve Trang. That's where I learned
mm,
all this kinda speech and stuff.
amazing. It's awesome.
Can I pause my live? Hold on. I'm gonna pause my YouTube live. I don't wanna say this.
No
How
problem.
about
Also too, just a little bit about me.
yeah.
Whenever I'm nervous or when people are watching me or listening to me, my accent comes out where I don't make sense sometimes. Like I like it would be very hard for me to enunciate some of the words. So if you notice that, it's because I was nervous earlier because I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot there's people watching, you know? Like, it's
No,
just
we've
normal.
only had 1 view. So,
Okay, no,
people
that's
typically watch my stuff after.
okay. But
Um,
still, you know, because it's recorded too. So I was like,
yeah,
because my accent always comes out. And that's why I hardly do social media because I'm always afraid of like messing up, you know? But
yeah,
yeah, just thought
yeah, so I'm not gonna do it right now because I don't know how to pause my YouTube live without pausing this, but I'll share it with you after and I'll stop the recording,
okay,
about, like, stuff that'll help the script and all that.
for sure.
So, you got the script, you got the idea to use phone numbers, then I think it's really just calling as much as humanly possible. Like, that's and, you have to pay attention to your data too, like the numbers of your dialer. What were you gonna
I,
say?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, so I already know the area that I want to cold call.
Mhm,
It's not in California. It's another
mhm.
like southern state, three states actually. Does it work for different states or is this just for California? It would
Yeah,
work.
you can actually so if you buy different numbers, they all different zip codes?
Hmm.
So you can buy and I would probably like it might be a little bit more expensive, but buy the 30 phone numbers per area.
per
Like, I know it sounds more
per
expensive, and
state
also
per
per zip code, yeah, because
zip
you
code.
want the same zip code for the person you're calling, and
Right,
you can
right.
assign those numbers to only call people of this area or this list, so that you
Mhm.
don't get, like, 702 zip code calls to, um, a different zip code. Does that make sense?
Wow. Okay. That makes sense because
Yeah.
they won't answer.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the
Really.
data goes, because when you start calling, you're gonna see well, you might not look, but I recommend you definitely look at all the dialer reports that whatever your dialer will have. And the big things to see are there's like number of dials, so how many dials you make a day, how many dials you make a week. That's a big one. Just that's like that's your number to look at as far as am I actually doing enough work? Because you got to promise yourself that you're going to call however many based
Hmm.
on your time.
And you do it.
Now,
You have a goal per day.
yeah, yeah. So every dialer is different. For mine, if I'm calling for 6 hours, and I can usually actually, depending on how many people pick up the phone, I can probably call like 500 on average people an hour, so dials an hour. And in 6 hours, I can contact or connect with, so people actually pick up the phone 150 people in the 6 hours. That's my note. So like that might be a good metric to have an
100
idea.
people under 6 hours.
Yeah. So like
Whoa.
25 an hour, assuming you're using triple line. Single line, it's much, much, much less. Um, Now, so that's good data to have as far as the dials.
Triple line.
Also, you
I
this will be
understand.
different for everyone in terms of how many leads you're gonna pull per
Mhm.
in a most dialer reports won't have this because you have to make the data yourself, but you'd wanna be able to look at you'd wanna be able to include how many leads, so people that say yes or engaged
Okay.
leads that say yes, they wanna sell, um, per many however many dials you make. So I know when I was doing this more consistently with VAs, for them, even with maybe slight accents, 1,800 dials, they'd be able to get 1 or 2 leads. So that was for them.
Right.
Um, it's like I don't know. I'm still figuring out my data for that one this round because I do speak a lot better than I used to. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But for me, calling like 1,200 today, I got 2 leads. And so I don't know, like, we'll see how it continues to go. But you just wanted to keep track of that stuff because oh, I can't your microphone disappeared.
Oh,
There
sorry.
we go.
I was playing around with it. No,
It's
I
good. It's
meant
back.
it's pretty good though to having those numbers are great. Um,
Yeah.
that is so crazy. 150 people under 6 hours, 25 per
Yeah.
hour, triple line. That's so cool.
Yeah. And it's not like long conversations. Only a couple are long conversations. Most of them are like, "No, I don't wanna sell," or "F off, don't call me again." You don't get that often, but, and then there's a few in there, they're like, "Actually, yeah, I'm interested."
That's cool.
Um But it's always whenever people say no, which is most of them, you always have to ask if they have anything else, maybe anything else that they consider selling,
Mm,
or if they're super receptive, you can ask more questions of, any houses in the area that or any friends that wanna sell. That's if they're receptive. Most people are trying to get off the phone from there.
uh,
Um,
I'm
but
learning so much. Thank you.
yeah, because no one did this with me, and I was like, "I wish someone did," because I had to
Thank you
figure
so
this all
much.
out, like, on my own.
This
Um
is this is expensive knowledge. Like I keep saying, this is really expensive knowledge.
Yeah, that's why I like going live on the YouTube is because actually I've gotten a lot of feedback lately, and my watch time and growth on YouTube has started to, like, pop because of these calls.
It's
Um,
interesting.
yeah,
Because a lot of people, and I mean, I commend those people. Like, if they want to, that's great, you know.
yeah,
But a lot of people, like, you have to pay for these types of knowledge, especially that you're
yes,
giving out software that works
yes,
for you.
yes.
And the fact that you're even giving this to me for free, thank you so much.
No, of course. I just wanna help, that's the thing is
Thank you.
but I think those are the important things. I mean, the other thing, I don't think you'll have an issue with this if you don't go above a triple line dialer. Because there are other like my dialer, it goes up to 12. Like I can call 12 people at once, but I don't because there's another thing called the abandonment rate, how many calls you abandon.
Okay.
And what's considered an abandoned call is let's say you're calling on a triple line dialer, all three people answer at once. You talk to one person, the first person that picks up, the other two just kind of go blank and it calls them later. Those two are abandoned. And so I look at the rate and I don't want my abandonment rate to be above 2.5% after calling like thousands. You won't know at the beginning, but if you're abandoning too many calls, meaning everyone's picking up, then you probably want to dial it back. You're like, maybe I should use double line, so two line, or this is mainly for the people who like to use six line, five line, and like
Mm,
call like spam call. But I
mm.
would just stick to three line or below. Um, I think those are the important
That's the
metrics.
basic,
Is
the
yeah,
basics. Yeah.
yeah. Those are really the ones you need to focus on. The rest are like how many went to voicemail, how many were not in service. But I don't think you'll have issues with those.
What happens when you do get a deal? That's when what's your
Like if someone says yes.
yeah, if someone says yes, like I
Okay.
want to sell my house to you.
Yeah. So the moment someone says yes or says yes, I want to sell my house, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, perfect. Um, and they're going to say yes in different ways because of the script that I use. Because I'm asking, you're probably not interested in selling. There's no upward inflection of like you're probably not interested in selling. It's not like that. It's
Yeah.
a statement. You're probably not interested in selling, and they'll say
Yeah, there's a
something.
difference.
They'll say, "Well, maybe," or they'll say, "Oh, it depends on what you offer me," or they'll say like, "Yeah, for the highest price possible." And there's a bunch of different like um, prompts depending on what they say of what you should say. And so, for example, if someone said, "Yeah, well, maybe I might," and all I do in that case is like, "Well, when you say I might, what does that mean?" Just
Mm,
clarification. If they say for the highest price possible, and then for something like that, I'd say something like, "Yeah, well, that's understandable." Um, I'd either say, "What were you hoping for?" Or kinda depending on how they said it, I might say, "That's understandable. It sounds like the only way you'd sell if you got highest price possible or market value." And they might say, "Of course." And then from there, I'm going, "Hey, like, I'm just being upfront." I would tell them, "No, that's cool, but I don't buy properties for cash at market value. I buy for a profit. But there might be other ways I can help you if you actually do wanna sell. I can find you a great realtor to help you list it, or we can talk about other options where I buy it closer to where you want, but it's not a cash offer. It's something that you'd
It'll
help
be
me
like
finance.
creative finance.
And then
Okay.
from there, that's when you know if they actually want to sell or if they're wasting your time. Because
Mm-hmm.
then they'll say, "No, I don't want a realtor," and like, "No, I don't want to work with your offer." And like, you don't want to sell. Like you understand, and then you just move on to the next one.
Okay.
Because the thing about cold calling, and this is something I didn't understand before. Before I try to stay on the phone as long as possible all the time with any single prospect that answered. But now I'm just trying to move on to the next one as fast as possible because you have to disqualify people because your time is valuable,
That's right.
especially if you're like when you're looking at the data, it reflects like if you're on the call with so many people for so long that don't actually want to sell, your data will reflect it. You're like, why did I make 500 calls today instead of 1,000 or whatever it is your goal was? So it's just on to the next one.
Because
So
you can kind of sense already if they even want to sell,
yes,
you know,
yes.
because I actually learned that too. Sometimes like we can't convince them to sell.
Oh yeah,
Because
no.
the time that we're convincing someone to sell, we're losing that opportunity from someone who actually wants to sell, you know,
Yes,
just
exactly.
taking that time away from them. So that
Yes.
actually makes a ton of sense.
And basically anytime they are agreeing with me and they're saying and I'll send you the script so you have it all. So it's not you don't have to memorize, but um every time they do want to sell and they're like, "Yeah, actually, and I think the price could make sense." Even
Yeah.
if we're pretty far off, but I think we can bring them down or they do want to sell.
Hmm.
Um from there, I just say, "Hey, like is it cool if I just share with you how we work just to see if it even makes sense for us to keep talking?" And they'll agree. I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." I tell them I appreciate your time, and obviously I got to ask you some questions just to make sure this is something that I want to buy because I don't buy every single property I come across. And to do that, I typically have to ask you some questions. Some might be personal. Would that be okay? And the reason like we get permission and we set the rules, like I set a rule at the beginning too of like, was this a good time or however I phrase that. And
Mm-hmm.
so if they're ever like, hey, like I can't be answering these. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you said at the beginning it was a good time. I'm confused. Like you just stuff like that. And usually when someone agrees to something up front and they forget about it and you say it, you bring it back up to them like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Like let's continue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like little stuff like that. So if I tell them I'm asking you personal questions, and then maybe my next question, which it is what has you considering selling or why do you want to sell?
Yeah.
Um, then they're like, well, what does that matter? They're
Yeah.
like, oh, like, I'm so sorry, I'm confused. I thought it was okay for me to ask you some questions,
That's
and
really
they'll
smart.
always go, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Like, like
Right.
it's
Yeah, I
because
get
you, but if you don't set the rules, then you're screwed because you ask that question. You're like, well, that
that.
doesn't
It's free
matter.
floating
And then you're like,
the
"Well, yeah, I guess
conversation.
it
Yeah.
doesn't. I never set the
Yeah.
rules."
That's
Um,
so smart. That's really psychology.
it
Oh,
is. It
that's
is, but
interesting. I'm gonna use
you
that now.
you basically just go down the list of pain points. You
Mm.
get an understanding of what they want, why they want to sell, and then for me, I never try to close on the first call because it usually just doesn't happen. I'd rather understand where they're at, price point, what their pain is, and set another call. I'm like, "Hey, let me give you another call once I crunch the numbers, talk to my partner, whatever it is." And I'll set up another call with them, and that won't even be the call that I try to close because I want to try to close when I know I have all the decision makers present. Because
Mm.
if I give my pitch and they're like, yeah, sounds great, but then
Yeah.
like let me talk to my wife, I'm like, oh, like I could have just had her here at the same time. So my
Mm.
second call, assuming that they want to be lead and assuming they want to sell right now, because most of the leads are like, actually, I'm not ready to sell until like 6 months or a year. But if they want to sell right now, my next call with them, with probably really fast, is I'm just going further into the pain and I'm just trying to dig into like, okay, like here's what I have so far. Um, you told me here's where you want to be, and I'm not really necessarily talking about more price right now, but I'm just trying to like confirm all the information I have so that I'm pretty confident on the offer because I might have an idea of where I need to be at, and
Mm.
I might spit out a range, but most likely it's not. Most likely I'm just trying to understand why they want to sell and their pain point. And
Yeah.
that's just like those are just my follow-up calls because typically they don't want to sell right away. Usually it's like at least a month or two out, like most often realistically, because you
Yeah.
just met them and they're not. super trusting
They
it.
don't know you as much yet.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
as soon as you talk to them maybe one more time, two more times, five more times, then when they're finally ready to sell, because that's how it works, it's like, hey, look, let's set up an actual call where we're discussing everything. Because I don't even talk price until the very, very end. So hey, let's set up a call to where we can discuss everything because I know you want to sell now. And before I set up that appointment, it's like, hey, before we do, does anyone else have input on the sale of the house? Like, not necessarily they're another co-owner, but just someone's whose opinion you trust and someone's opinion who you value that you
Mm.
want to talk to first. And I word it that way. Somewhere, like I don't say, are there any other decision makers? Because if I ask that, like no one, only salespeople say decision makers. The word decision, so I
Yeah,
don't use it with them. I use, does anyone else have input or anyone's opinion matter to you that you talk to before you sell?
that is
Um,
so great because you're giving them it almost like you really care
yeah,
about them.
and I
It
do. Like,
shows
yeah,
that you care about them.
yeah,
Like it's
and
not like you're after the money or anything like that. You're after like how can I solve a problem for you?
yeah, that's what it is because then they know I'm here to solve the problem, and that's exactly how the last
Yeah.
appointment is. I'm just trying to see what they want, and if
Yeah.
if I really don't think that a cash offer works, I'm not gonna offer. I'm like, hey, like, I don't know if this will work. I think
Yeah.
this is what you might need, or they'll tell me. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, with the decision maker thing, yeah, that's how I word it because if they say, "Yeah, actually, my girlfriend, her opinion matters," or my son, usually it's like my son or my daughter,
Mhm.
I'd probably talk to them and say, "Hey, look,
Yeah.
I know their opinion's valuable. Would it be cool if they were on the same call too, just so there's no miscommunication and they understand everything too? I don't want them to misunderstand." And it's just
Right.
wording stuff like that, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a pretty good idea. Let's have her on." Now, this is if I'm setting a virtual closing or trying to close virtually, which I had to do for a long time because I was living in Vegas.
Mm.
It's always best if it's in person. Like you'll close better. Um, where you can say the same thing. Hey, let's bring her out to the house when we meet. Or for me, it's like on this phone call or the Zoom, or maybe Zoom call. If I might set
Right.
up a Zoom call if they're savvy with tech. But on the Zoom call, it's have her come on, and then it's the pitch. And the whole pitch, I know I'm walking through like the entire sales process, but the whole pitch begins with just starting with the rules. So at the beginning, I'm one, just appreciating for their time. I'm saying, hey, look, first, thank you so much for inviting me into your world.
Yeah.
Or if it's your house, into your home. And if I say something like that, it just show appreciation. Then it's, hey, like most of these appointments, they typically actually go an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Like, is that still a good amount of time for you? Maybe you set that up front too at the beginning, the previous call. But the reason I say that is if they got to go in 30 minutes and you're midway through your conversation,
Yeah.
like then it's screwed. It's like they're like, "Hey, actually
Mhm.
what price are you going to offer?" And then it's screwed. Like you want to make sure they have enough time because I've never bought a deal in 20 minutes. It's always been a lot
Yeah.
of chatting.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Because that person is selling you their house, so
yes.
it's yeah. Whenever I meet with sellers, I really try to get to know them, and I want them
Mhm.
to get to know me. And so they don't ever last 20, 30. Like they're usually like
Mm-mm.
about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So you want to
Mhm.
make sure that's the case.
Yep.
And they're like, "Yeah, no, that's still fine." And then it's just setting more rules about the appointment. Same thing about like, "Hey, I might be asking you some personal questions," like a similar question like that, or might maybe setting the rules. Hey, like, I just want to let you know that I typically this process goes. I have to ask you some questions just to see if it makes sense for me to buy because, or I won't even say because I just if it makes sense for us to work together for me to buy.
Mm.
And it just positions yourself in a way that shows them you're not desperate for the deal. You shows them that you have the ability to walk away like, hey, I don't even know if I want to buy this. Because most sellers they think that they're in the power. They're in power. They're
Yeah.
not if you do it right. If
Yeah.
you do it right, they're gonna understand, oh, like you might not buy this. And so usually I'll say something also, and this is all might be in a little bit different order, but I'll also explain to them that if it makes sense, if everything that we talk about makes sense and we come to an agreement, it would make sense for us to put everything in writing. That's typically how these go.
Mm.
I'd also tell them, or I'd probably ask them, are you okay? if I actually don't end up buying your house and we don't end up working together. And then again, it's the same kind of frame of like putting in the position of I don't have to buy this. I can't buy every single house I come to.
Yeah.
Um and like that's the important stuff you said at the beginning. And then the main key points that you talk about after that is pain, dig into their pain, then it's timeline and condition, and then price.
Nice.
Now, as far as digging into the pain,
Pain, pain.
there's a lot of different ways, and this is the most important thing. This is where most your conversation should be at. Like for the hour, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, like most of the conversation. Um, I'll open up different ways, and this is the things I've been taught. So if I'm in the house, well, I'm usually not, but I even if I'm not in the house, I might still say something. Well, it sounds like you got a great home. Why would you consider selling to an investor like me? And I
Mm,
enunciate the word investor so they understand. Oh, okay, he's an investor. I can expect a low offer because to set the expectation and letting them know like, hey, this might be not typical for you to sell to an investor. Like, I want them to tell me why they want to sell. I want them to like beg me that they want to sell to me. And if I'm in person, I'd say, hey, this is a pretty nice home. Like, why would you consider selling to an investor like me? So same kind of concept. Or
mm.
it could be
That's
I've never
really
used I've never used this actually, but this was taught like with the disruptors training. I don't it probably would work, but after you set the expectations and the rules, the opening is so why am I here? Like I've never used it, but like it's pretty bold, you know, if they might be like, "What?" And you're like, well, why am I here? Why and they might get into it. I just never opened with that. Usually
you're
my
like,
go
what if they're like, you set up the
Yeah,
appointment?
I know, like, but yeah, usually my go-to is it seems like a nice house. Why would you consider selling to an
Yes.
investor like me?
And I
That's
usually
been
do that
mine.
too with sellers.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, this is really nice. Or they'd be
yeah,
like, this is it has a lot of potential.
yeah,
That's usually how it'd be. And um, yeah, it's a balancing act, you know,
totally.
of not begging for the service, like for them to get your service, but it's also understanding like your value, what you bring to the table and why. But
Mhm.
it's like a balancing act, and that's similar. That's so
Yes.
cool.
And then once you talk about the pain, if they ever say anything and they actually reveal their pain, which they should if you're gonna get a deal with them, then it's just digging in more. It's like maybe they talk about, yeah, I'm behind on my property taxes, maybe I'm having issue with a tenant or something. He's like, dang, like how long has that been a problem?
Mm,
Or then it's like, how do you feel about that? Like, have you tried to do anything to solve it? And I was
right.
like, did it work? You know, all
Yeah.
these prodding questions to make sure that they're feeling it. Because no seller will make a decision without emotion, without feeling the pain.
Exactly. It's the real
So
estate is very
yeah,
emotional.
you just dig
And
into every pain point, and then timeline is for me. Timeline is
it's your
usually next for
timeline.
condition. So I'll usually this is an interesting one too. It's another assumption. And so after
Okay.
you're done talking about pain and you verify like how they feel about these things, and it's like, okay, so like when as far as getting it sold, what are you trying to get this sold by Easter? So like it's October now, it's like 6 months or
Mm,
so out. I'm assuming. So I'm like, so you're trying to get this sold by Easter? And if they do want to sell fast, like a cash offer, they'll say, no, like that's too long. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, why do you need to sell so fast? Like, that could be it. If that's just like different wordings you can do, but
yeah.
they'll correct you because you're assuming. So you always have an idea 6 months out. What's a holiday I can choose?
Right. And it keeps them
Um,
engaged too.
yes, because
Like,
they'll think. They'll actually think.
yeah.
Um, so that's usually the timeline. It's not super complicated. Just get an idea of what they want. And even if you don't do it the best possible way, it's like as long as you get the information, you're probably fine.
Right. I'm writing
Condition.
this down already. I have so
Oh,
much.
nice. Condition's different because I usually do this over the phone. So
Mm,
I'll ask them different questions about like what can you tell me about the property
right.
and any major rehabs or
Has
renovations
the
done the
roof,
past
you know?
5. And it's hard because they always lie. So I'll always have someone go by, take pics. But if you're in person, it's much easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then from there, it's just confirming everything, confirming their pain, confirming their timeline, their not a condition, but once you confirm their
You
stuff, then
have,
it's like, hey, like, you remember how at the beginning we talked about if we came to an agreement that
yes.
um, we'd put everything in writing. And also, I forgot to mention this. One of the expectations is I'll also say at the beginning, um, hey, what I'm afraid of is a lot of the sellers I've talked to in the past, they're really afraid to tell me no. Can you just promise you won't do that? It's okay, or
Wow.
it's okay to tell me no because I don't want to be left with a maybe. So I'll tell them it's okay to tell me no. I just want you, like, you're not gonna hurt my feelings, I promise. But if the offer that we make you doesn't make sense for you, just would you promise it's okay to tell me no? So I'll say that up front, and at the ending, I'll also remind them,
Good.
and I'll say, hey, look, we're going over the pain, the timeline,
Mm,
reminding them about the rules in the beginning that we had,
right.
and then I'll go into, like, I guess the different offers or the things that I can help them with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's where I need to be at after talking about price points. So we already talked about their price a little bit. Now, as far as extracting price, different ways you can do it. You can start out saying something like investors in the area are paying around this range for property like yours. I'm not saying this is my offer, but if you were to get an offer like that, what would you do? So it's
Wow.
giving an offer without giving your offer. And that's usually not
Yeah.
my first choice.
It's
That's
almost
usually like,
fishing a little
yeah,
bit
you are
subtly.
fishing. Another thing that helps is when you say the word off the record, it works. Like if they're refusing to give price, you're like, okay, like, off the record, what were you hoping for? And they'll, for some reason, they'll give it. and, and
It's so inviting when I'm set off the
yes,
record because
yeah,
it looks more like just between you and me,
yeah, it's like it's no biggie.
That's so cool.
Um,
Like it almost brings down a
all
little bit of that formality.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
main one actually that works most is, especially if they're with a partner,
Yeah.
is hey, like, history tells me that the night before, the morning of, husband and wife will actually discuss a price that would best work for them. Would you mind sharing with me, like, in round numbers, what that price was? And I say round numbers because people are like, okay, I'm not going to give my exact price, but they do, because even though you say round numbers, they'll still give their exact price. They're like, would you mind sharing with me in round numbers what that
Mm-hmm.
was? And they'll
Mm-hmm.
share it. So, like, those are the main ways. And if they're still like, no price,
Mm.
I could say, hey, look, I told you at the beginning, I don't buy every house I come across,
Yeah.
and I have to decide where I'm going to be putting my money. So
Mm.
when you go to like a car dealership or something and buy a car, do you make an offer on all the cars or just the ones with the list price?
Yep.
And they'll start to think,
Yeah.
they're like, well, yeah, like I do make offers on the ones where there's an asking price. And so yeah, like it's the same way here. Like I don't know what I can offer without knowing what you want. So
Yeah.
that's like last resort. But those are the main things that I do to extract that.
Oh,
And
that's
then
super
it's
interesting.
cool. Yeah, so like that's the general process, but I don't want to take too long. I know it's been a while and I do have movie night with the lady, but but
Why?
I want to send you this before I go. Is